Nice to meet you, Brian.
Just explain what we're doing now.
I must get
Ratoath Says No.
No problem.
I just want to say it's great to see some of the high-profile people that have come down here today, and I'd like to give a special welcome to Paul Murphy. Vincent Browne is over there somewhere, I think. Philippe Legraine.
Thank you, Diarmuid. It should really be your own politicians up here. In fact, it should be people from the government who are here to listen and to respond to your protest, because ultimately this is about a massive injustice that has been done to you by EU institutions, by the ECB, by the French and German governments, by the European Commission, but also by your own government which is complicit in that, by your own government which has failed to stand up to that bullying, by your own government which has failed even to be honest to the Irish people, or I understand failed even to meet to you. And what you are doing here is protesting not just at the injustice of the bailout, but also at the lack of democracy and the lack of listening of your own politicians. And I am moved, inspired by your quiet dignity, by your cold anger, and by your determination to get justice. And if I can help in any way, please, I fully share your aims, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
In 2010, you mentioned to the ECB about the debt write-down. Do you think the debt write-down's getting the coverage now it deserves?
No, it's obviously the focus has shifted quite a bit. It's not part of any of the establishment party's agenda now. It was in the election in 2011, so things have changed.
What do you consider is the importance of the Ballyhea March?
Okay, I think the Ballyhea March is really important because it's one of the few really sustained marches, sustained protests against the injustice of the bank debt. The focus of the group has never changed. All roads come back to the bank debt. We have horrific injustice in this country. We have people suffering unfair taxes and charges. We have cuts to services, but it all comes back to the bank debt. It's just an unbearable burden being put on the shoulders of the Irish people, and we will continue to keep on marching until something happens about it.
I suppose we were before our time in one way. I suppose the government made it unnecessarily complicated, which suited them. They didn't want people knowing what they were doing, and they didn't want us telling people what they were doing.
The consistency of trying to get the message out to the people of Ireland about the injustice of the bank debt, the repercussions it's had and continues to have, the way the debt has been extended over 30-40 years because of the prom note deals. I suppose making the link between all the austerity cuts, taxes, universal social charges, back to the bank debt is very important, and I think people are actually getting that message now, particularly through the water tax and charges, and people are actually starting to become more vocal and getting out on the street.
Philippe, what do you consider is the importance of the Ballyhea March?
Well, I think it's very important that Irish people are protesting against the injustice that has been done to them by their government and by other EU governments and EU institutions. When an unjust debt is imposed on you, you feel completely disempowered, and the Ballyhea protest group taking matters back into their own hands and recovering some dignity and hopefully going to change things.
What do you think is the importance of the Ballyhea March?
The fact that they're right. They've been right since day one, the first march, and they're still right. I just can't believe that it took so long for the rest of us to kind of wake up. We're from Ratoath Says No. We're 100 weeks behind them. So for 100 weeks they marched consistently, knowing that they were right, and that's why they're still here today, because they are right. And I think they're going to get the result that they set out for on the first day.
Well, I think the most significant thing that I learned last night, speaking to some of the Ballyhea group here, is that they have been to Brussels and to visit various institutions in the European Union to put their point of view across. Talking to Marion Harkin, she said that even though, when she was approached by people in Ballyhea, even though the people weren't in her constituency, that she had met them, and that their points of view had changed her mind on the issue of the bondholder bailouts. And I thought that was really significant, that people can make a change.
What do you think is the importance of the Ballyhea March?
Yeah, I think it's like a conscience for the establishment, in the sense of it's pressure on them that, look, this is ongoing, but also it's an inspiration, and most importantly, for people across the country. Like, even before we had this explosion of a social movement over the past 2 months, it was a reference point for a whole lot of people, and people were thinking, and it reflected where people were at, because people wanted something to change, but they weren't confident about doing something, and so they were like, it's brilliant that someone is doing something, it's brilliant that people in Ballyhea, but they didn't have confidence to do it themselves. But now that reference point has been turned into like an active factor, part of inspiring people to get involved. Like Fiona, I thought, summed it up really well last night about taking the step off the path onto the road, joining a protest. So I think it's been very important.
It's fairly simple. It's just to keep the issue alive. You know, as long as we live in debt, I suppose we have to keep the issue alive. We've seen over the past short while how quickly other protests have risen up, and we've been kind of waiting for that for the last few years, because it was inevitable that big issue. You know, there was going to be the straw that broke the camel's back. While it's hard for a lot of people to link some of the hardship back to the debt, when you know the conversation around it gets so complicated, and the point of the whole thing gets lost in a muddle of facts and numbers and billions and millions and whatever. I think it's important for us to just keep going and hopefully just keep it alive.
Do you think the bank debt's finally getting the recognition it deserves?
Yeah, I absolutely think that in the last 6 months, more people are talking about the bank debt, whereas when we started, nobody was talking about it. So I think there's a huge growing awareness amongst the Irish people, and that gives me great hope to carry on the fight.
Okay. Do you think the debt write-down is getting the recognition it deserves in Ireland, or not?
I don't think so. I think that at the moment the government is focused on telling a story about recovery, that the other institutions look at Ireland as a model of a successful adjustment, and obviously that's not the reality on the ground, and it leaves unanswered the question of the unjust debt. So I think, no, it ought to have higher priority.
I think it's starting to float in a little bit more into conversation. People who in the past have never really paid much attention to it, starting to realise we're bending over backwards to pay a debt that's not ours, and it's not getting better. This is going to continue for the next 30-40 years, and it will never end. It will never end. So now's the time to act on that, get our money back, put it into our own country, and start to look towards a better future.
The potential for a debt write-down, I think people in some respects still see it as being pie in the sky, and that sure, you'll achieve nothing by protest, but in the last couple of weeks we see when people do en masse come out and say we're not happy with water charges, it doesn't make sense, or it's unfair, and so on. All of a sudden our government is doing a U-turn, and that's I think hugely significant from our point of view, is that people actually see, if we go out and actually champion a true cause, that there are actual benefits, there are ways of making the powers that be actually change their minds.
No, I don't think it's getting the recognition that it deserves, because it's the central political question, and all the establishment parties and the media try to treat it as an issue that's over, it's done. Maybe it was a mistake, maybe it wasn't, but it's too late now to do anything about it. But I think it is getting more attention than it was previously, in large part thanks to groups like Ballyhea, Charleville, and I think more and more people, despite the fact of how the media talks about it and how the establishment parties talk about it, more and more people are aware of it. So there are reasons to be hopeful that it can come to the centre where it deserves to be.
It was never about getting recognition, it was about getting the debt recognised, and getting the government to do something about it. Our motion before the Dáil to ask for a debt write-down, which the government defeated.
that just a whole lot of guff gets spewed and the point gets lost. The essence of it is that this is an odious debt. It's not our debt, and we shouldn't be paying for it.
There are two major things we're building on from here now that we've got this one over. December the 10th is one. I think that everybody that's here should be up there on December 10th. And then the last Sunday of this year is week 200 of the March here. And it's not anything that we're celebrating, because I don't think any of us wanted to be here for 200 weeks. But I think it's something that we must be here for. But anybody else who can be here for week 200 should be here. And maybe Vincent and the lads might join us again on that day. So December 10th and then December 27th, we're building towards that again. And there's one other thing I just want to let you know, because it's been on the agenda for the last 4 or 5 weeks. But from the 1st of December, I will be in Brussels full-time, working with Ming Fanagan as a parliamentary assistant out there. It hasn't been completely finalised yet. All the I's haven't dotted and the T's crossed, because of the bureaucracy out there is just unbelievable. But it wasn't the way that I wanted to get out there, because I like to be in the front line and taking whatever hits have to be taken and giving whatever hits have to be given. But I don't think I could be with a better man out there anyway, because he represents, I think, everything that we've been marching for the last 3.5 years. And that's it. We'll see you next Sunday in Ballyhea.
Marcus Howard, test 1, 2, 3.